Dear friends, welcome to EPG Pathashala. I am Professor Korada Subramaniam from Hyderabad Central University. In the subject Indian culture, the social and cultural history of India, today we are going to discuss the Hindu family system. In India, the family system is totally different. We are going to discuss nature of family, head, succession, joint family, relations and features. First of all, the concept of kutumba or family is unique to Indian tradition. One would find a closely knitted relation among different members of a family based on everlasting mutual affection. Then the four pillars of human life we have discussed in another module, namely Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha are detailed in Shruti and different Smritis or Dharma Shastras, and all the people are bound by these seminal works. A householder is considered to be helping people of all other three kinds of ashramas, that is brahmacharyam, vanaprastham and sannyasam. So the household life or garhasthyam is considered to be the superior among when compared with rest of the three. Then we have to discuss actually as to what is a family, and according to Indian tradition, in introduction let us touch certain aspects which are very important. Up to an age of 5, लालयेत् पंचवर्षाणि दशवर्षाणि ताडयेत् षोडशे वर्षे प्राप्तेत् पुत्रं मित्रवदाचरेत्. This is the tradition. So up to 5 years of age, the children should not be, should be tamed rather. We should not punish for any kind of mistake on there. Then after 5 years, for 10 years, that is up to the age of 15, one may give slight punishment to a child. Then after, when the child attains the age of 16, then he should be treated on a par with a friend, and one should not try to punish or do anything or hurt the feelings of the child, whether both male or female. This is according to our Shastra. And then about the wealth also, there is a very good verse. Uttamam swarjitam vittam madhyamam piturarjitam adhamam bhraturvittancha strivittam adhamadhamam. Whatever wealth you have acquired on your own, by your own effort, that is the best. If you have received something from your father or forefathers, then it is of a medium type. Then if you get the wealth transferred or by other means from your brothers, then it is considered to be a bad one, mean. Then if it is the wealth of a lady you are going to acquire, that is nichati nicha, are very very bad. The most, very severely that is restricted. That means one should not touch the wealth of a woman. That is there. Then after that what happens? Ardhangi, there is a term that is very popular, well known to people. What is this? Ardha means half. Anga means body. So Ardhangi means half of the body. Wife is considered to be the half of the body of her husband. That means after marriage, there are no two persons but for the physical separation. There is, according to Indian tradition, there is one and only one. That means in Indian tradition, strictly speaking, there is no question of divorce. No. A person cannot simply give up, send her wife outside, or can say, no, I don't have any relation. Ardhangi, she is half. What does it mean? The suggested meaning is that in terms of dharma, artha and kama, these three things, the wife has got equal rights. A person does not give money to his wife, rather the wife takes. That means both are equal. There is no superiority or inferiority between a wife and husband. This is clearly stated in Adhova Esha Atmano Yatpatni. It is clearly stated in Taittiriya Samhita as well as Shatapatha Brahmanam in two branches of Veda. And Jaimini, the author of Purvamimamsa, which deals with the earlier parts of Veda, he clearly says that a single karma performed by wife and husband, and the norm is Dampatyoho Sahadhikaraha. Dampati, the word itself means Jayacha Patischa, wife and husband. Both have performed a rite, R-I-T-E rite, that is a karma. Then both of them will have the same phalam. The phalam will be distributed between them. And another great sage, Apastamba, says, Pranigrahanat Sahatvam Karmasu Punyaphaleshu cha Dravyeshu cha. So he says, after marriage, this is called generally Panigrahanam, holding the hand, that is the literal meaning. Panigrahanam is marriage. Once a boy and girl got married, the bride and bridegroom got married, then there will be only one person. There are no two. So the wife, whatever punya karma or any good deed that results in punyam is performed by husband, the wife will partake of the result of that punya karma, but not papa karma. That is the suggested meaning. If the husband commits any sinful thing, any papa, wife is not going to partake of that result. Therefore, and she will have the same rights in all the karmas and punyam, and as well as dravya. Dravya means anything that is there. For example, it may be a house, it may be wealth, it may be cattle, whatever may be, in whatever form it may be, dravyam, that the wife will partake of it. And in all the activities, she will be there. Then, marriage and family affairs. This marriage is a rough translation of Vivaha as far as Indian tradition or culture is concerned, Vedic tradition is concerned, because in other cultures, living together by two people belonging to the different genders is called marriage roughly. Whereas in Indian culture, this will not go. That will be there, living together will be there. So by taking this kind of similarity only, Vivaha is translated as marriage. Otherwise, it has got a lot of meaning. So according to Indian culture, one should get married after completion of his education and taking the permission of Guru. And if the one more thing is said in Manusmriti, if the ladies are respected in the family, then all the devatas, all the gods will be enjoying stay in that family. If the ladies are put to trouble, or if they are weeping, if they are suffering, if they are disturbed in any way, then the gods will not be there to live. They will not enjoy the stay. That's all. So this is clearly stated in Manusmriti. And if the ladies are simply weeping or suffering in a family, then not only that family, but the entire clan or vamsha, to the entire clan will get perished. This is clearly stated. Yatra narijastu pujyante ramante tatra devataha, etc., etc. This is clearly said in Manusmriti. Therefore, a person desiring prosperity should please the ladies by offering ornaments or clothes, good food, etc. at different occasions. And the conjugal relation. Bhrigu, the author of Manusmriti, asserts that the house wherein the wife and husband have mutual satisfaction would certainly shine and with auspicious occasions forever. So the conjugal relation or dampatya sambandha between wife and husband is very important for a harmonious life of the family. So he also praises the second ashrama, this is Garhasyam, we have already said, that is very useful for other ashramas. And Grahasthashrama is on the top of ashramas, as the people belonging to the other three ashramas, that is Brahmacharyam, Vanaprastham and Sannyasam, would depend on this Grahastha or household person for their food, etc. Then the daily routine. Manusmriti clearly says, Brahme muhurte buddhyeta. One should get up, wake up early in the morning. Brahma muhurta, it is also called roughly 4:30 a.m. In the early morning, and think about dharma and artha. What are the things to be attended? What should he do? What are the financial matters to be discussed or to be addressed? And then the related physical labor and as well as Vedanta are the very putting efforts to attain jnana. All these things should be done early in the morning. So ladies should not be left without protection. This is very important. Actually, Nastri Swatantriya Marhati is a dictum that is often quoted and often mistranslated. A lady doesn't have independence. That is how it is translated, but that is wrong. It is just the last leg of the verse. The full verse goes like this. When the girl is young, then she should be protected by Pita. Pita rakshati kaumare, bharta rakshati yavvane, putrascha vardhake vayasi, nastri swatantriya marhati. This is the verse. So the father is directly responsible for the protection of the girl during young age. When she will become a youth, when she enters the age of youth, then it is the responsibility of the husband to protect her, to offer protection. During old age, also she should be protected by her sons or daughters. And like that, she should be in the protection of any one of these people, father, husband, and sons or daughters. So a lady or a woman should not be left without protection. Today we realize why they said some thousands of years ago, why Bhrigu Maharshi said, careful, careful, you should give protection to a girl. Today the situation is very bad in India because we did not follow, rather we are not following the dictum that was offered by Bhrigu Maharshi in Manusmriti. Then head of the family. Who is the head of the family? Our Indian tradition clearly says that father is the head of the family. And he is directly responsible for any tenets of dharma, that means non-violence, truthfulness, not stealing, asteyam, cleanliness, etc., mental and physical cleanliness, and control on sense organs, and donation, sympathy, or bhota daya, what you call, and control upon mind and patience. All these virtues should be possessed by a father, and he is directly responsible. Also, one should select a suitable livelihood which is straight and honest. One should not go through backdoor methods, or one should not try to hoard a lot of money or wealth through different means which are not acceptable to Dharma Shastra. Then family and head and property. As far as the property is concerned, Shruti clearly says that father is the head of the family, and also father is the owner of the property. The sources of acquisition such as birth, purchase, etc., and the sources of ownership have been known since time immemorial and not started by Shastras. These things are not started or prescribed by Shastras. These ownership, etc., have been there since time immemorial. Daya and Daya Bhaga, PL1. That is Daya and Dayada. What is Daya? Any property that is to be distributed among the stakeholders is called Daya. And the one who is eligible to receive a portion of the property is called Dayada. So Dayadas are, just for example, if there is some property, the father, his sons are the Dayadas. So the wealth acquired by father from his father or mother, etc., is called Daya. Whereas the people like sons who are entitled to receive a portion of Daya are called Dayadas. And the sons do not have ownership whatsoever on the Daya of father as long as he is alive and until he becomes a sannyasin. Sons should not should not claim this is mine, I want to do this thing. They can't say. There is another school that holds that the son, grandson or great grandson, they acquire the right of ownership of ancestral property by birth. So partition will not be there, but they have the rights. Sources of ownership. Gautama in his Smriti called Gautama Smriti lays down 5 sources of ownership common to all, namely inheritance, that is called rektha in Sanskrit, purchase, partition and seizure and finding of any treasure. These are the 5. Gifts etc. may be other sources of ownership. Bad source of income and punishment. Manu in Manusmriti clearly lays down the rule that a Brahmana who gains wealth through teaching or priesthood to a man whom he knows to be a thief is punishable on a par with a thief. That means a thief should not be taught, or a Brahmana should not accept a priesthood to a thief. If at all he accepts, the Brahmana is liable for retribution. Inheritance. Authors of Smritis agree that persons other than sons, grandsons, etc. have no right in the wealth of their relatives. Next, this problem with ownership. If sons have ownership by birth in ancestral property, then on the birth of a son, the father cannot perform any Vedic rite that are ordained in Vedas, without the consent of the son. So this goes against the ordinance of Veda. So Devala Smriti is there. Devala is a great sage like Gautama etc. and he negates the son's ownership during the father's lifetime. There is this kind of thinking. So ownership by birth. Gautama quotes a statement of others which says that the one acquires ownership by birth itself. This is supported by numerous statements of Yajnavalkya, Katyayana etc. That is that in the paternal grandfather's wealth, the father and the son have equal ownership, and so the right of the son must be by birth. Then father in command. As head of the family and its manager, he is called manager, the father has independent authority to spend ancestral wealth for indispensable acts of dharma ordained by Shruti and Smriti texts, that is Veda and Dharma Shastras, for making gifts of affection, for maintenance of the family and for ridding the family of distress. Similarly, further, the father or the manager of the family can dispose of even immovable property. Generally, he is not allowed to dispose of immovable property, but in certain cases, he is allowed to even dispose of the immovable property by mortgage or sell in a season of distress or for the benefit of the family and for necessary rites such as Shraddha or the marriages of sons, daughters, etc. Then, control and expenditure. The Smritis restrict the owner of the property from making gifts to the detriment of the family. Swam kutumbavirodhena deyam. Yajnavalkya Smriti clearly says, see that it does not go against the family or family members. In such a way you are supposed to, that means the father who is also considered to be the manager to spend money. Therefore, property does not comprise only what one can dispose of at one's sweet will, but what is capable of being disposed of as one likes. Then, means of regulating the owner. How to regulate the owner? A person may be prevented from dealing with his property as he likes by the king or by the rules of Shastra or by public opinion or by his own inclinations and the pressure of people who are there around him. There are various grades of limitations of property such as the father's power, the widow's power, and so on. What a person earns should belong to him, should be his property. Manu, Bharatam, etc. say that there are certain people without wealth. 3 persons, namely the wife, the son, and the slave, are without wealth, and whatever they earn is for him to whom the 3 belong. Shabraswami clarifies the above statement of Bhrigu in Manusmriti. This passage does not deny the ownership of the wife or the son in what she or he earns, but is only intended to lay down that the wife or son cannot independently dispose of what she or he earns. That means they have to go on adding to the wealth of the family rather than do something independently. Then limits of partition. This Dhareshwara, a great sage, holds that when the father desires to make a partition, he may distribute his self-acquired property as he likes among his sons, but as to the property he got from his own father, that is grandfather or of his sons, he has the same ownership that sons have, and he cannot make an unequal division at his sweet will. Then, joint family and partition. So, Madana Parijata, a great work on this Vyavahara or the family affairs, speaks of 4 times of partition, namely during the father's lifetime as at his choice, partition can be done, even against his will, when the mother is past childbearing and the father is free from all sexual desires and does not care for wealth. That means he is about to go for Vanaprastham. And then when the father is old or follows the path of adharma or suffers from an incurable disease, then even against his will. And the 4th one is after the father's death. In all these 4 circumstances, the joint family can make partition. Mitakshara accepts all the above except the 3rd. Mitakshara is authored by Haradatta Mishra, a great scholar. Then, problem of majority and minority. How to decide as to a person has acquired majority? Partition was generally made when all the stakeholders were major, but it appears that the minority of a stakeholder is not a bar to partition. So Kautilya in Arthashastra says partition takes place when the persons separating have attained majority, but the stakeholders should keep in the custody of the mother's relatives of those stakeholders who are minors or of the elders of the village the share of the minors. After all the debts of the family are paid off till the minor stakeholders attain majority. The same rule applies to a member of a joint family that has gone abroad. Then, deciding majority. How to decide majority? Who is minor, who is major? Then Katyayana clarifies that partition is ordained among stakeholders who have attained the age of understanding of worldly affairs. They should be in a position to understand the worldly affairs, and in the case of males, it is 16th year. Some hold that majority ends at the beginning of 16th year, whereas Mitakshara holds that the view that minority ends at the end of the 16th year. So once the son completes 16th year, he is considered as major and he is eligible for partition. So king is the guardian. According to Gautama, Manu, Vasishtha, etc., the king was to guard the property of minors, women and helpless people. King is directly responsible. Then, dichotomy of property. Property, according to ancient Hindu law, can be divided into 2 classes. The one is joint family property and separate property. Joint family property is either ancestral property or property jointly acquired with or without the aid of ancestral property, or property acquired separately but thrown into the common stock. So Mitakshara clarifies, among unseparated brothers, if the common stock be improved or augmented by one of them through agriculture, trade or similar means, an equal distribution nevertheless takes place and a double share is not allocated to the acquirer. Ancestral property. So here ancestral property or apratibandhadaya, this is technically called in Dharma Shastras, is all property inherited by a male from his father, paternal grandfather or paternal great grandfather in which, according to Mitakshara school, the sons, grandsons and great grandsons of the person who inherit it acquire an interest by birth. Ancestral and separate property: if a person obtains a share of the ancestral property on partition, it has been held that it is his separate property. If he has no son, grandson or great grandson, but if there be any of these, then it is ancestral property in his hands so far as he and any of his male descendants are concerned. Kinds of separate property: property inherited from any person other than the father, father's father and further. A gift of a small portion of ancestral movable property made through affection by the father to his issue. Gift or bequest of separate property made by the father to his sons. Gifts and bequests made by other relations and friends, and gifts at the time of marriage. Ancestral property lost to the family and recovered from a stranger by a member of a joint family with his own efforts without assistance from joint family property. Separate earnings and gains of learning of or science, which are technically called Vidyadanam, also fall under the head of separate property. So kind of separate property, there are rather another kind of Shaurya Dhanam and Bharya Dhanam, etc. are there. Katyayana distinguishes between Shaurya Dhanam and Dhvajahruta. Narada and Brahaspati put both under Shaurya Dhanam. So here Katyayana divides the Bharyadhanam, wealth of wife of Narada and Brahaspati, into two, namely Kanyagata and Vaivahika. Vaivahika is of Manu and Audvahika of Yajnavalkya are the same. That means at the time of marriage, whatever the girl, the bride gets gifts, etc., that is called Audvahika. So impartible things are there. Manu enumerates the things to be impartible from their very nature: clothes, vehicles, ornaments, cooked food, water, it is well, etc., women, yogakshema and ways leading to the house, garden and the like. These are impartible things. Donation at Shraddha. Shraddha is nothing but a death ceremony. And there Avibhakta Kutumba or joint family and Karta. This is a Hindu undivided family. It is called by income tax people today HUF, and there will be Karta. This Karta is not stated in Dhamashastras. Generally father or manager he is called. This in the Smritis and commentaries we came across the words Kutumba or Avibhakta Kutumba. Avibhakta means undivided, a family that is not separated. A joint Hindu family consists of all males lineally descended from a common male ancestor and includes their wives and unmarried daughters. A daughter on marriage ceases to be a member of her father's family and becomes a member of her husband's family. Under the Mitakshara, the Hindu stakeholder, strictly so called because is a much narrower group than the joint family. It comprises only of those males, etc. Some important features are those males who take by birth an interest in the joint property. Some important features are detailed by Mitakshara. There is in the first place unity of ownership. There is also unity of possession and enjoyment. Further, while the family is joint and some stakeholders have many children and others have few or none or some are absent, they cannot complain at the time of partition about some stakeholders having exhausted the whole income and cannot ask for an account of the past income and expenditure. A female cannot be a stakeholder even if she be the wife or the mother. Another feature is that each stakeholder has a right to enforce a partition. Avibhakta Kutumba we have discussed, and joint family, then Vibhakta Kutumba or joint family and Karta. One more right of all members of the joint Hindu family is the right to be maintained from the property and income of the joint family. If a son were born to the father after partition with the sons, he would be entitled to the share taken by the father. If the father took no share, then the son so born would be entitled to reopen the partition and take a share of the property remaining after taking into account accretions and expenses. Adopted son, what to do? An adopted son, if adopted by one stakeholder in a joint family or by a sole surviving stakeholder, becomes under the Mitakshara law a member of the group of stakeholders from the moment of his adoption and has the same right to demand a partition as an Aurasa son or biological son has. Under the Dayabhaga literally means partition of wealth. Dayabhaga means partition of wealth. Even as an Aurasa son cannot claim partition during his father's life, and so an adopted son would be in no better position. If after a person adopts he has an Aurasa son, the adopted son's share becomes reduced according to most commentators. Wife and partition. According to Yajnavalkya, the wife cannot herself demand a partition, but if the husband himself separates his sons during his lifetime, the wife was entitled to a share equal to that of a son. If there be several wives, each gets a share equal to that of a son. There is a provision that the wife or wives must not be in possession of Stri Dhanam, property given by the husband or the father-in-law, and that if there is Sridhana, then only as much more will be allotted to her as will make her share equal to that of a son. The Mitakshara states that at the husband's will, the wife also gets a share of the family wealth, but not by her own will. Then, share of a widow. Vishwarupa, an ancient commentator, states that the widows of predeceased sons and grandsons also should be given the shares that would have been taken by their husbands if living along with his own wives by the father at the time of partition with his sons. In the conclusion, both Dayabhaga and Mitakshara make the widow of a deceased stakeholder a member of the group of the stakeholders. Share of mother or stepmother. When the sons come to a partition after the father's death, the mother or stepmother also is entitled to a share equal to that of a son in the joint property. Grandmother and step-grandmother. A paternal grandmother or step-grandmother cannot herself demand a partition, but when a partition takes place between her son's sons, her own son being dead, or when it takes place when her and the sons of deceased son, she is entitled to a share. Vyasa says the childless wives of the father are declared to be entitled to a share equal to all grandmothers and are declared equal to the mother. Not eligible for a share. So, impotent persons, outcasts, that is patita they are called, persons blind or deaf from birth, insane persons, idiots, the dumb and those deficient in any organ of the body or sense are entitled to no share according to Manu, Yajnavalkya, Narada, etc. The grounds of disqualification apply to males and females alike as stated by Mitakshara. Eldest son. The Apastamba Dharmasutram concludes that equal division among sons is the proper mode and that giving a major part of the estate to the eldest son is forbidden by the Shastras. So, summary. So, now in this module we have discussed as to what a family is, and whether a father is the manager of the property, what to do with the joint property, how to deal with the partition, and whether wife, son, etc. have got equal rights or not. What about the rights of adopted sons, widows, etc., etc. and whether the people who are dumb, I mean who have got some problem in some bodily limb or the other, are they eligible for partition, etc. So with this we conclude this module. For further information, please visit EPG Pathashala, that e-text on UGC website. Thank you very much.